So Amelia, would you go ahead and just introduce yourself and what you're running for?
Yeah, my name is Amelia Gardner, and I'm running for Utah County Commission Seat A.
And this is you're already in the role, so this would be your second term that you're running for. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was elected about a year ago to fill a vacancy, and so this will be me running for a full term.
Okay. And prior to this, what did you do?
Prior to that, I was the Utah County Clerk Auditor. It was a dual position that's being split, so I did all the clerk functions and all the auditor functions for Utah County.
Perfect. Now, Utah County is a little unique because there's commissioners versus county mayors. Can you explain why that structure and what the biggest difference is?
Yeah, commissioners are really how counties were set up 100 years ago. And the idea was to try to keep that level of government fairly small. A county is a political subdivision of the state. The whole reason that counties were set up was because it was too difficult for people from all over the state to ride on horseback to the Capitol building to be able to do things like record land. So Utah set up counties. There's 29 counties throughout the state, and they do mostly things like health departments, typically fall within counties, as well as land records is a big part of what we do, sheriff's departments, and non-egregious prosecution. So anything that isn't a federal crime is typically prosecuted at the county level. And that really allowed those levels of government to be local for people that maybe didn't have time or money to travel to the state capitol back in a time when traveling wasn't as easy. So Utah County has actually never moved away from a commissioner form of government. And what a commissioner does is we really combine the roles of council and mayor into one, and then split it amongst three people. So we do all the legislative, all of the rules and policies, as well as all the administrative and executive functions are all combined and then just divided amongst the three commissioners.
Now, you're in one of the fastest growing counties, and there's been incredible economic growth in Utah County. You know, what gets you excited, and what are your concerns when it comes to this economic growth?
Yeah, so the question is asking about how quickly Utah County is growing and what are the concerns and what are the excitements. Utah County is the fastest growing county in the state of Utah, and it's one of the fastest growing counties in the country. Now, our growth is unique in that it comes from inside and outside of the county. In 2021, Utah County had over 20,800 babies, and we only issued about 3,500 death certificates. So we actually have babies here in Utah County at a rate 6 times higher than people pass away. About 60 to 70% of our growth in Utah County is actually us having children. Only about 40% of our growth comes from the outside. That's very unique across the country to have that much internal growth. So there's a lot of exciting things about it. One of the exciting things is that Utah County has a really great culture and community. So when you look at things like socioeconomic upward mobility, Utah County literally has the best socioeconomic upward mobility in the country. If you are born in Utah County, it does not matter what zip code you're born in. It does not matter how wealthy your parents are or whether you're in a 2-parent home. You have just as much opportunity to succeed and climb the socioeconomic ladder as any other child in this county. That's huge. And that's because of our community and our culture. And as we have children and they grow up here, they become a part of that community and culture. And that's really exciting for us to know that we can take that and continue moving that forward, because the world does need more of that. We need more of children knowing that they can succeed no matter where they're born. And Utah County really is the poster child for that. It's really exciting. Some of the biggest challenges is affordable housing. As we're having all of these children, where are our children and grandchildren going to live? We don't have enough of any type of housing. We don't have enough apartments. We don't have enough condos. We don't have enough townhouses. We don't have enough single family homes with 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. We don't have enough single family homes with 6 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. I mean, we need more housing, and it needs to be affordable. For the first time ever, it costs more money to purchase a home in Utah County on average than it does in Salt Lake County. And our average home price is over $500,000. And that's concerning.
So thinking about housing, because I think Utah County is feeling this very acutely with the population growth, but it's being felt statewide.
Right.
How do you think the state should help with housing affordability?
I think one of the best ways to help with housing affordability is we really need to change the dynamic. Right now, a lot of people think of affordable housing and they think of, giant, ugly apartment buildings that breed crime. And that's not how affordable housing needs to be. And that's not how it can be, or I think how it should be. I think the best way to preserve our ability to have this community that breaks the cycle of intergenerational poverty is that like 1 in every 10 homes, 1 in every 15 homes should be an affordable home in every neighborhood. So one of the ways we can do that is along major transportation corridors like tracks lines, front runner lines, bus routes, and along major transportation corridors like State Street, for example. We should work with developers and as they're looking to do redevelopment zones or looking at these things, if we say we want you to dedicate 10% of your housing to affordable housing, then we can work with them on subsidies while they're building, right? A lot of builders will come and they'll say, hey, we want to take out these old warehouses that aren't being used and we want to put in condos. Can we get a tax break while we're building it? It's like we don't pay full taxes while we're during construction. We can come back and say, yeah, we can work with you on that if you'll put 10 to 15% of your housing into affordable housing. And then we're not actually expending a ton of money on that. We're just basically allowing the area to develop how the market wants it to develop, but ensuring that everybody has an opportunity to live there. The other thing we can do is we do have affordable housing dollars. And I would be in favor of utilizing those affordable housing dollars to help people put down payments on homes if they fall into some of these categories that are lower income. Home ownership is the American dream. People are more invested in their communities if they have own home ownership. And we can work with individuals to help them achieve that dream by helping with down payments. Oftentimes, public sector employees like teachers and police officers, they fall below the median income. And if we can help teachers and police officers own homes, then I think we're helping the community.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, talking about the number, you've got a lot of kids in Utah County. And one of the biggest things that we hear from tech CEOs is, not being able to hire fast enough or not having enough qualified candidates to hire from in our own state, which causes for recruiting or looking, setting up remote offices and all of that. Tell me, what are your priorities when it comes to education in Utah?
I think one of the things that we need to be more focused on, and I see us trending this way, and I'm very excited about it, is we need to be looking at skilled trades education. So years ago, there was this plan that they wanted to make sure that 80% of all kids who graduated from high school went to college. And frankly, 80% of our jobs don't require a bachelor's degree. So sending 80% of our high school kids to college doesn't actually make sense. And maybe they're taking student loans and then they come out of it without the ability to work in their area. I would like to work with the industry like Silicon Slopes, particularly the people that have a need to hire, and say, what do you need? A quick example is if the local schools are teaching JavaScript, but everyone in Silicon Slopes is hiring Python developers, that doesn't help us. It doesn't do us any good. I use that example because I have a 16-year-old who wants to be a developer. He wants to be a programmer. And in school, he learned JavaScript. But as he's looking at internships, everybody that he's looking at is programming in Python. So this summer, I'm actually sending him to a summer school to learn Python. Well, wouldn't it be great if in school he had learned Python? Right. If that's what the industry is using. So I think really getting two things. One is good communication into our school system so that we are teaching our students the skills that they need to get the jobs right here at home. The second thing we can do is be really supportive of the industry setting up its own certification or its own mini trade schools so that we can get workers through that quickly. If you can set up a dev school that teaches the skills and you can teach people the skills they need in 3, 4, or 6 months to be working, then we in the government need to work with you to help support that.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I'm also, working with Salt Lake Community College, and they've got a wealth of programs too focused on those trades. And I wish that, students in our community would leverage it more because it's such a great asset here.
Right. And if you look at Salt Lake Community College, they're going to be looking at their classes are going to be on a semester system, and they're looking at an associate's degree. And that would also include, you have to take English and sociology and science classes. But maybe you have a student that just wants to come in, be there for 18 months and leave programming. We need to look at certification programs as well, not just degree programs.
Correct. Yeah. So we surveyed about a few thousand of the tech community, and overwhelmingly, the response to the question, what is your biggest concern living in Utah? And it didn't matter if you're a lifelong Utahn, had just moved here. It didn't matter what role you played in the company, from executive on down. The number one issue was air quality. And that was a little surprising to me, but tell me, do you believe the state should be involved in issues like air quality? Why or why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think air quality is definitely something that we need to look at. We have a very difficult scenario here because of the way that our mountains are and because of our natural bowl. We collect bad air, and we don't just collect our bad air, we collect California's bad air too, right? And so we need to have solutions. We need to look at this in ways that doesn't just stifle our growth because we have California's pollution. Right? We need to find a way to look towards solutions here at home without stifling our people. I think some of the things we can do is really around awareness. Having the state let people know what conditions are coming, like, hey, next week it's probably going to be red air days because of these certain weather conditions. Knowing that and then encouraging people to do remote work in those weeks, those types of things really do help. I also think that the Free Fair February that UTA did really helped. Most of our inversions come in the month of February. And if we know that, so we can use the month of February to make public transit that much more accessible to try to help. Things like that are creative solutions that aren't stifling growth here because of activities of people in other states, but yet still trying to tackle the problem. We need more solutions like that.
Switching to ESGs. So the ESGs are these, also known as social credit scores. There's been a lot of talk. Some of it, I think, is a little bit of fear of the unknown of what that means. But what do you think the state, from your standpoint, how involved should our government be involved in these social credit scores?
Yeah, with something like a social credit score, the area where it becomes a little bit scary is if it ties to people's ability to purchase a home, or if it ties to their ability to basically live their lives. That becomes frightening. Now, it's one thing to have a social credit score for consumers to choose. So if a company has a social credit score, I think that then allows consumers to say, I do like that, or I don't like that. And so I'm going to purchase goods from that company. I'm not going to purchase goods from that company. In that area, I think we're actually creating a more informed consumer. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? If your shoes are being manufactured by slaves in China, slave children in China, you might want to know that, right? I personally don't wear Nike shoes because I don't want to purchase shoes that are manufactured by slave children in China. I think that that's important to know. It creates transparency. Where ESG scores can become dangerous, and where I think the state and the government might have a role, is if it's being utilized to penalize financial institutions from giving loans to people or to companies. I think when we're looking at someone's ability to provide for themselves or their family, I think that we should not meddle in that and say, I don't like what you're doing, and therefore I'm not going to fund it. If they have consumers and they have customers that want to purchase their products or goods, then I think if a bank or credit union wants to loan to them, that should be between them and their financial institution. And I don't think that the government or large investors should come in and try to control that in any way. Mm-hmm. But I think from a transparency standpoint, it's actually a very valuable tool for all consumers to know where a company stands on certain issues and where they're performing.
And so this is my last question. During the last legislative session, there was House Bill 60, which would have essentially made it illegal for businesses to mandate vaccines of their employees. It was a very controversial bill, a lot of energy around that. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I stand I do not support mandates in that area, particularly because of the way laws in the United States are written. So I actually have a child that almost died when he received one of his vaccines. It was very, very scary. We almost lost him. He had a really, really bad reaction to one of the ingredients in the vaccine. Now, because of that, he's exempted medically from vaccines in Canada and in Europe. But when we moved back to the United States, I was working for Caterpillar at the time. When we moved back to the United States, in the United States, you can only get a medical exemption for the exact vaccine that almost killed you. Even if that vaccine has the same ingredients as other vaccines, you actually have to go to a hospital, get the vaccine that will almost kill you, get treated at the hospital in order to get a medical exemption. The United States is the only place that does that. So as the mother of a child who literally almost died and has an exemption in every other country, I supported HB 60 because our laws here are so backwards. Now, if it was as simple as me being able to go to a doctor and have him write a note saying he has had a really poor reaction to vaccines before, we do not feel comfortable with him getting a vaccine, then I would feel very differently on that issue. Because I do think as an employer, you should be able to mandate things for your employees. Where that crosses a line is when we're dealing with people's individual DNA and with their disabilities. And so I felt that HB 60 actually was a protection for people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. If the laws were different, then I very much would be opposed to regulating any business. So for example, I'm not opposed to a business requiring their employees or their customers to wear masks, as long as they will make exceptions for anybody with a medical exemption. So for example, if you don't know if someone has PTSD, I mean, if a woman has been mugged and there was a hand over her face when she was mugged, and when a mask gets put on, if it causes her to have an anxiety attack and she's got a medical exemption from her therapist, obviously they need to be able to have medical exemptions. But I think with the vaccines, a lot of people don't realize that there are people that react, and it is a disability. And until our nation has the same understanding as nations like Canada and the European Union and the UK, I supported HB 60 for that reason. I would like us to be more inclusive for people with disabilities. And if we can be, then my opinion on that would absolutely change.
Right. Understood. And I mean, it didn't end up passing, but it was a big talking point. And there was a lot of emotion from both sides. So we wanted to,
Yeah. And it's funny because I oppose it because of people with disabilities, and most people who support it because of people with disabilities. And I think we both want the same thing in the end.
Right.
We're just kind of looking at it in a different perspective. But by and large, I typically am 100% against the government regulating what an employer does with their employees. So I completely understand that aspect of it. But I do think we need to make exceptions for people with I would call it a disability, because it's their genetics, something they cannot control. And until our country gets to the level that the European Union and the UK and Canada are at, then I think we've got some challenges.
And I think it just goes to show how a lot of these issues, especially the controversial ones, are so nuanced, and so many different circumstances. So having these discussions are really important.
Absolutely. And we don't have to be vitriolic when we have that discussion. right? I mean, I wanted HB 60 to pass, you did not, but I think we both agree that we want people to be protected. We don't want to regulate businesses. I mean, I think it's very nuanced, the disagreement, and I love that we can have this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you have those conversations, you have better policies, you know, because you're thinking about everybody's perspective. So, yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or, you know, make sure that people who are watching this understand about your platform?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, particularly for the tech industry. I am one of the most innovative government officials in the country. I've actually been recognized by GovTech magazine as one of the top 25 drivers, doers, and dreamers in government. I'm very innovative. I don't wait for someone else to see if something works. I jump in, I innovate, I embrace disruptive technologies. I truly believe that innovation and technology is how we move forward in government services. And I'm not alone in that, but I'm a unicorn in that, right? And so I very much support the tech industry. I embrace innovation, and I want to make sure that we at government are following your footsteps, and partnering with you in that process. Along those lines, I was actually just appointed by the governor to be on the Blockchain and Digital Innovation Task Force. So thus far of the appointments, I'm the only one from local government that has been appointed to that task force so far. And I'm also the only person so far that has actually implemented blockchain technology in government. So very much on the cutting edge of innovation and technology. And then I think probably one of the biggest things for all voters, not just the tech industry, is to recognize that I have broad support across the spectrum. Even though I don't always agree with someone on policy or on political ideology, I work with everybody. And I find areas that we do agree and that we can work together. And I try to look for commonalities and areas that we can see eye to eye. And so that's why I have broad support, you know, from all across the political spectrum, Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated voters. I get calls on a regular basis from people. I am a Republican, and I get calls all the time saying, I've never donated to a Republican candidate in my life, but can I donate to you? And I actually see this on Twitter and Facebook. I've been getting tagged in people's posts lately, and they'll say, we don't, you know, I'm voting for Amelia. We don't agree on political ideology, but I really like that she finds ways to work with everybody. So I think that that's really important. But I do still have endorsements from very polarizing individuals, because I can stand true to my political ideology while also working with everybody, and we need more people like that.